All right. I would like to call this September 10th, 2024 City Council meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregg, Councilmember Shealy, Councilmember McBride, Councilmember Mitchell, Councilmember Brady,
Present.
Councilmember Gregory, Councilmember Waring, Councilmember Seekings, Councilmember Tinkler, Councilmember Bowden, Councilmember Appel, Councilmember Parker, Mayor Cogswell.
Here. I'd now like to ask Councilmember Parker to please lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we could all just bow our heads, take a moment of silence and pray for all those affected in Georgia after the horrific events. Amen.
And pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, don't have a lot in the way of presentations and recognitions, but given that today is September the 10th, tomorrow is the 23rd anniversary of the terrorist attack on 9/11. Did want to just ask for a moment of silence out of respect for that horrific a day and have us all remember. Thank you. I'm going to ask a personal privilege. I'd like to recognize a good friend of mine, Dale Blessing, and his wife Rosie, who are here with us today in council chambers. And he has brought with him here tonight a very special guest, a friend of his from the African country of Mali. And I'm glad I wrote the name down phonetically, Jaffe and Matayeto. Not even close. But wanted to just welcome you all to Charleston. We are glad you are here. And, I'm honored that your visit to the United States, you wanted to come check out a city council meeting. So thank you for being here, and we're glad you all are here. Okay, we are now moving on to public hearings. There is one public hearing tonight regarding the provision of funds for parks and recreation improvements.
Yes, sir. And I think Brittany is still retrieving the list downstairs because we were moving pretty fast, but did anyone sign up to speak? And did you want to set a time limit, Mayor?
Let's see how many we have.
All right. How many people wanted to sign up to speak? Oh, here we go. That's all right. So let's see here. And this is for the
Parks and Rec Fund.
Parks and Rec funds. All right. Did anyone want to speak to the Parks and Recs funds?
Anybody for Parks and Recs bond issuance? Okay. Well then, let's move on then. Do we need a motion?
I would move for approval.
Move for approval on the ordinance amending for the Parks and Rec bond. We have, okay, we have a motion, probably second. Any discussion on this item? Okay, if none, then all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
And
I would
then-
move for third reading and ratification.
We have a motion properly seconded for third reading and ratification. Any further discussion on that? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, now on to approval of council minutes. We have motion properly seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. All right, we are now on to citizens' participation. This time period is limited for those of you that are new to council to 30 minutes total. Madam Clerk, how many people do we have that have signed up to speak?
We have 9 people signed up, and we are going to start with the in-person list first.
Okay, so we have 9 people, so I'll give a minute and a half since we have a little bit more time. And again, we'll just remind you all from a housekeeping standpoint that we do require that the rules of decorum are followed. When you come up to speak, please be respectful. If you are not, I will give you 1 warning. If I'm required to give you 2 warnings, you will be escorted from the council chambers and no likelihood out of the building. So please, again, just be respectful and honor the time commitment as well. So Madam Clerk, one other point. This is not a question answer. Please do not direct any of your comments directly to individual members of council. This is for you to have your voice heard on given items.
All right, Zach, be seating. And the time is 1.5 minutes.
In 2011, Mayor Riley changed the procedure for pedicab procurement. What had been a fair, frequent, every quarter lottery turned into a 5-year competitive bid with actually an unending term. That has been since changed. Now, there are a couple reasons, 2 in particular, why this change was made. The first was it was billed as simple. We've had 3 bids right now, and each has been canceled, and lawyers have gotten involved, and laws have changed. So this competitive bid is not simple. The second reason was that it was supposed to bring additional revenue to the city. But because it has not really been a competitive bid, the incumbent companies are paying you 41 cents per decal per day. I don't know anything that you can buy for 41 cents per day. In fact, it is cheaper for them to operate their company than it is for me to get one ride from here to the Exchange building. You encouraged investment in this industry, and then you pulled the rug out from everybody who tried to get involved 3 times. You're not going to get much more from this industry if you don't actually invite other competitors to join it. Imagine paying 41 cents for the exclusive rights to own an entire industry. Why would they pay you any more? You guys have kicked out all of their competitors.
Susan Lyons.
Hi, I'm Susan Lyons, speaking for Groundswell. Since the comprehensive water plan was released on August 27, Groundswell has received many comments from citizens who are reading the plan and the basin's map plan.
Susan, you may want to speak closer into the mic just so everyone can hear you.
Shall I do this again?
That's good.
Okay. I'm here tonight to ask for help. Groundswell would love the city to schedule a public forum as soon as possible in a large venue where the water team could walk members of the public through the plan. That way, they would receive help in understanding it and showing them how to locate their properties and follow the city's progress as you follow the plan. We think this would enable meaningful public engagement with the important project that this is. Thank you.
Sue Walters.
Hello, my name is Sue Walters. I'm from the Homeowners Association on James Island. And I'd like to thank you for making the comprehensive water plan and the basin's map available to us. We're anxious to see work on the plan get underway. Can you give us a timeline as to when the city's GIS overlay will be ready for the basin's map? Also, will you be adding funding to the Stormwater Department's budget to enable a bigger staff to manage the increased number of projects outlined in this plan? Thank you.
Savannah Brennan.
Good evening. I'm Savannah Brennan. I'm here representing Charleston Moves. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I am just here to remind you all that we are here to collaborate as it can be helpful for you all with the Sumar Street project. We're very excited about it. We look forward to working with you all and Edens on working through the multimodal component of this proposal, making sure that folks can walk, bike, and bus easily throughout the site, to the site, from the site, especially connecting to the Future Better North Bridge project and all the excitement around that. We also, just two more things, would love to see, if possible, more of a percent going to affordable and workforce housing. While we appreciate the 10% allocation that's been mentioned, we would love to see more of that. We know that when you have people being able to afford to live in mixed-use centers, that means there is less opportunity to have to drive. And opt to walk and bike and access what they need within close proximity. And then the last thing is we would, of course, like to see more green space, public parks, trees, everything to help diversify this site, make it more comfortable, and encourage more people to arrive there and spend more time there. Thank you very much.
Barbara Brown.
Good afternoon. Hello, I'm Barbara Goss Brown, 1026 Riverland Drive, Charleston, South Carolina. I'm the a concerned citizen and the former president of the Ferguson Village Neighborhood Association. We'd like to thank the mayor and council for their work in the water management plan. Well, what we like to ask of you also is that, I'm not sure, I haven't seen the plan yet, that in doing this, Ferguson Village be considered, as well as the other communities that's having flooding problems. This has been a problem for us for years. We would like to know, I would like to know personally, as a concerned citizen, is there any way that the city can come into our community? We have things in place. We have easements. We've been working with the Dill Sanctuary and getting our drainage problem, getting help with our drainage problem. Now we're asking the city to please come in and help us. In the past, when the last storm went through, we have a rise in water moccasins. I've seen 2 of them in my yard already in the last 2 weeks. So this is a very big concern for me in my neighborhood. Is there any way that the city can come through as an emergency type situation to help us relieve some of the standing water that's there in our community? And again, we thank you for all that you're doing and the work that you're setting forth, but please don't leave us, the small communities, out. Thank you.
Charles Steiner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As a lifelong resident of West Ashley, I remember very well when we first got our driver's license. Back then, you could do it at 14. And we would drive out to the site, which would become the Piggly Wiggly. What was out there was a mobile home dealership. As you went to Orange Grove Road, it dead-ended into solid woods. Orange Grove was dirt on either side. There were riding stables down there. Then one day, some billboards came up and said, "Coming soon, new homes, Northbridge Terrace." I have watched that area evolve. I have watched that area devolve into the god-awful eyesore it is today. And we now have an opportunity to bring it back to the proper glory it deserves. I want to thank the mayor, council, and everybody on staff, as well as the developers who've gone to that. And I strongly urge your support for this project. Thank you.
We will go to the online list. Anthony Bryant. And if you're joining online, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6.
Yes, I'm here. Anthony G. Bryant, how y'all doing? How y'all doing? Can y'all
Yes,
hear
sir,
me?
they're fine.
Okay,
don't-
great.
They,
Yeah,
they, you
I
can hear them on the recording.
Yeah, I basically missed out on the public hearing. I wanted to make comment on the public hearing regarding the park and recreation. I missed that comment. You already did the third reading on it. But I would just add 3 seconds to that. If you got $22 million that you floated for Ben Navarro, a billionaire, and the school board and others with our parks and playgrounds, the question will be, well, at risk to be unhoused and probably unhoused Charlestonians be living on the parks and playgrounds. I'm calling in terms of my company, AG Bryan Group, Inc., who spent a whole year correcting itself to Secretary of State's office and also to the Department of Revenue. And so business cannot be conducted. I came before you as a business person, but it's to proceed to be something else. And I'm not going to pay money toward a fee, and the fee I'm paying, I can't even use the company. So therefore, that would be a governor's question. That would be a question of the Department of Commerce and many others. I spoke against these incentives on Facebook and Google and all of them. All these incentives are undermining, in my opinion, poverty in South Carolina. And we got to get real serious about what's really going on with these economic development projects and the impact on those who've been here forever, who make little, who are land rich in most cases and cash poor. And so that's my concern, Mr. Mayor. You did a great job on the flooding. I applaud you on that work. But I did want my comment to be connected to the park comment as well. Have a nice day.
And I believe Mr. Vicini also signed up online, but you spoke previously. We did receive a few comments that were sent to council in full. One comment from Mr. Bryant, who spoke this evening, was sent to council. We also received one from Stephanie Wilson Gentile, president of the French Quarter Neighborhood Association, requesting further details regarding the water plan for the formation of a Citizens Advisory Committee, and asked what steps the neighborhood associations could take to assist the city with the water plan. One comment was received from Jake Thomas asking why the pedicab bid had been canceled for a third time. And those were all the comments that we received.
All right, that concludes citizens' participation. Now we are on to petitions and communications. And the main item here is a presentation by yours truly. So y'all will bear with me. Here, what I'd like to talk with you all about. We'll set that for an hour. No, I'm trying to keep my record. But in all seriousness, the effort tonight is to let you all, in an effort to be fully transparent, talk through some different ideas that we have been working on for the city ops. Please understand that there's no action that needs to be taken here. This is just for your information only, to talk through different ideas that we are working on. And if there is no real objection to this or interest in proceeding forward, then of course this would go first probably through community development and come to council hopefully for approval. Might have some ways and means on here as well. But what we're talking about tonight is the idea of the city ops building and the fire training facility that has been proposed up on the Upper Neck area. And you all are pretty familiar, I believe, with, look at this, does that work? No. With the site, 16 acres that was purchased about, I don't know how long ago, by the city of Charleston. The idea was to move, or is to move, fleet and fire training and a few other smaller departments into this facility. And a design was worked. This is the site was previously owned by W.R. Grace. That's hence the name. But just gives you a close-up of what we're talking about. And so city staff, with the help, put out an RFP with Edens and SM Stubbs, Muldrow, and Heron, and came up with this general concept, okay? This is a schematic design on it. I first saw this about 2 months ago, and frankly, I had some concerns on it. I had some concerns for two reasons. One, I didn't love the architecture. It looks to me like a, kind of a flex building that might be outside of an airport. That's really not trying to knock the architect. I think they were working with what they had. But in terms of a city facility, this was not something that I was overly enthusiastic about. But the bigger issue that I saw here was that the site proved to not be big enough for what was being proposed. It's 16 acres, and in order to accommodate everything that is needed there, they couldn't put everything on there without building a structured parking deck, which you see here, built behind. So there it is, a better angle of it, right? And so when I started looking at it, this project, I think I have the costs here. You're talking about $110 million in total funding from the city of Charleston to build this facility, which is a lot. But what really caught my eye was down at the bottom where you see the breakdown on the hard cost construction, $25 million, really almost $27 million is for the parking deck. And to me, that doesn't make a lot of financial sense. So started thinking about different alternatives for this and wanted to run some of those by you before we got too far down the road, again, for discussion purposes or just for your information. So again, trying to figure out what to do with it. Started looking at how we could divide it, and it made sense to divide it based on fleet in one location and fire training in another location. And so what we've looked at now is keeping fleet here. This is within an existing TIF district. There's already been a bond floated for work, and some large project needs to go there in order to comply with the bond that's been issued, about $55 million to date. And that would serve as fleet. What it also does, and we'll talk about this later, I don't want to go into this, you're going to get a whole nother presentation on this, but it gives some additional property for the potential location of a regional rapid housing location that I'm working with other mayors in the community on. And that will be brought to community development for discussion. A lot of wood to chop on that. First and foremost, need to talk through with different mayors and the counties to see if they're willing and open to do that. And I'm presenting the concept to them on October 1st, along with our office on with John's department. So again, more on that to come, but back to the city ops. This would be a site for the fleet facility. And here's how it would be broken down, which there really wouldn't be any change to its footprint. The difference is where there once was a parking deck, that would be surface parking. And then to accommodate all of their parking needs and not have to do any structured parking, that's about the amount. And then it leaves about 2 acres on the side for other uses. In this case, that's the mapping out of a regional housing initiative. So back to the architecture, didn't really like the architecture that you saw there, started looking at some different considerations for this. Again, a building that could evolve in time. What you're seeing here are examples of old industrial buildings that have been retrofitted. It's quality construction that can last, kind of not just being a purpose-built building. These are some other examples of signage and how they've been, and I didn't come up with these, just so if you're wondering, some of these things that I'm related to somewhat or literally, but in terms of signage and what the architecture might be considered. And then also in terms of one of the biggest issues that we had, and I had with the original design, was the lack of natural light and daylighting. And so this just gives you an idea of a work environment with larger windows, and it's just, better for employee health, mental health, physical health, et cetera. So these are some of the driving forces behind it. So what we're looking at now, and again, this is very schematic, is evolving the plan to much larger windows. This is going, and we've had Edifice price this from a tilt-up concept to a precast concrete concept, which is much more sustainable, much stronger, and frankly, much better construction and having much larger windows. So the architecture does add some cost to it. Mainly the windows are about an $800,000 increase. That coupled on top of that would be about another, at least that, maybe $1 million in terms of additional HVAC charges. But in terms of the savings that we would be potentially getting from the parking deck and having better quality, I think makes a lot of sense. So again, just other iterations, you can see having the idea of having some signage painted on the building. I think it'll work well up there. That area, in my mind, doesn't need to be just an industrial wasteland. This too is a concept for the rapid shelter, but again, this was delivered yesterday. So again, just work in progress. You'll be getting a full presentation on that, but didn't want to go too far down the road without introducing it to everyone. So trying to locate an alternative location for fire training, started to look West Ashley, and are currently in negotiations and discussions with this site at the intersection of Bees Ferry and Glen McConnell. And so what I like about this site is a couple of things. One, it's centrally located. Two, there's not, I think it could be used as a buffer in many ways. And three, right now, there is currently contemplated to be a 300+ unit apartment project built on this site along with some retail. And so we would be buying an existing contract as part of this discussion and piecing together 3 parcels to put it all together. Another thing I liked about it is it is contiguous with the Harmony settlement that we just are finished or trying to wrap up. And if you wanted to do passive park through there, trails, what have you, this ties into it. And I think, again, a lot could be designed here, but I think it has a lot of potential. So this is the site that, again, we're not under contract with it. We have negotiated a tentative price through a LOI, but wanted to get this on your radar before we went too far down the road. And so what it might look like in terms of large scale, and we have had Edifice price this stuff now. In terms of comparing the two, there's about a $5 million net delta, so savings to the city. So what you're talking about here is by that $25 million between additional construction costs and then largely $12 million and site costs associated with the floodplain area and having to do the actual, not just keeping it neutral on floodplain, but actually improving the floodplain in that area of West Ashley, which is what our storm manual requires. This is where we would net out. So financially, I think that this would be a much more prudent approach. It would break up the two. We would have a better architectural building. We'd have additional space. We decide to move forward with this regional rapid housing concept. We would block 300 apartments. We would have better stormwater flow, I guess, or lack thereof, in West Ashley. So all in all, to me, this is worth pursuing. So wanted to present it to you all, ask if there are any questions on this. Again, if you do think that this is worth pursuing, we are happy to dig into it, but and ultimately take it through the respective committees. But didn't want to put a lot of staff time into this if there were any serious reservations. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions. Brady.
No questions, but I just want to say thank you for this. One of the things I know you and I have talked about is folks in West Ashley, and I don't mean to speak for Councilmember Shealy, but he and I have had conversations on it. People like to see the city represented in West Ashley. The Forensic Services Building was a great start. I think this, to your point, ties in very nicely with the Harmony site, and also allows for, a lot of firefighters live west of the Ashley, even if they don't live in the city of Charleston. And I would assume that that probably extends to recruits as well. That, just getting out of the academy, need to go through some fire training. And so, it really feels like it's a good site and a good location with ability to get there. And to your point as well, anyone that's driven down Glen McConnell in the morning knows that it's, even with the expansion, Magwood is still a holdup. But being able to have this there's already apartments at the Walmart. And I think this just adds to the mixed use kind of quality that's going in around West Ashley Circle, and it gives the city the presence. So thank you for thinking of that, and look forward to the rapid rehousing presentation as well.
Sorry, Gregory.
Mine has to do with the rapid response housing and the regional approach. Is there any discussion regarding other jurisdictions and what they will be providing for this regional approach? For instance, there's a lot of property on the naval base, lots of property on the naval base. And North Charleston has parcels, probably more than we do, that might be available. Mount Pleasant, I'm not sure of. In other words, I'm just trying to make sure that we don't become the Mecca and that everybody else sort of participates and we sort of spread this, because homelessness populations in West Ashley, okay? And we need to have some type of response there as well. So I just want to make sure that when we get into this regional approach, and we've tried this before, and in some cases we've been successful, I just don't want the city of Charleston, okay, to be the Mecca, and that people start coming from all over the country, okay, because of this approach that we're contemplating.
Yeah, let me just say there's a lot of wood to chop on the regional rapid housing concept, and we certainly have talked with North Charleston, with Mount Pleasant, with Somerville. All of those mayors like the concept of it. We're talking to the counties as well. This is part of this big meeting of mayors through the COG on October 1st to discuss, again, general ideas, other potential locations. We've talked about existing facilities in North Charleston. So, you know, but finding a location that is close to public transportation, that is centrally located, that is easily accessible, but not within a neighborhood, is a real challenge, as you might appreciate. And so this was one that has potential, but again, that's up for council to decide if we want to move forward on it. We just wanted to test proof of concept to see if it could fit, how many units could go there. And it just so happened to coincide with the ideas that we were working on related to the city ops. So a lot of wood to chop. That'll go through full process. We need to get more information on how willing the region is to will be in terms of financially putting, you know, contributing towards something like this, as well as putting their political capital towards it, so that we can get more resources from the state for this issue. Okay, Councilman Bowden.
Thank you. So obviously this is something that we're going to have to pay for anyway. And so $5 million is something that everybody, can celebrate around this table. But after watching the water plan presentation, I got real nervous about that development and, as well as previous experience. That development was kind of working its way through TRC, and they had a lot of challenges with the stormwater approvals anyway. And our stormwater department does a great job, and we have great rules in place. So, it's not like we should be making those decisions, but to take that out of the realm of something that will be developed and, in a really challenged area to something that hopefully will, conserve some more of that space and accomplish a public use, I think will really be a very welcome thing for my constituents to hear. So I would really encourage everybody around this table to think, to look approvingly on where this is headed, at least as far as the outer West Ashley piece goes, because this is really going to be something that they can, celebrate as well as we can celebrate that $5 million savings.
Councilman Mitchell.
Yes, Mayor. Water plan is something that I'm very interested in, as y'all always know I mentioned. And I don't have a problem, like I said, West Ashley needed, but the peninsula needed too. I don't think half of you all here is in the age that I am anyway, but the city of Charleston has been flooding, like I said, ever since. Ever since, I think when you all were younger, but ever since. And we still haven't solved nothing yet. Zero. We are still working on it. And like I always tell people, I said in school, when you went to school, they always talk about the nucleus and everything stems from the nucleus. We have to get the nucleus done too. We are still working on it, yes. And we can work on all these other entities also. We put a lot of money down to the battery. We put a lot of money down at the market. We got James Island needed. We got West Ashley needed. I understand all of that too. But we still got to get this done too. I know we're smaller here now in the peninsula. West Ashley have grown. Daniels Island have grown. James Island have grown. But we still have to work on it too. Even the regional housing, I looked at that very seriously, working in housing all my life. I still had a problem with the regional housing part of it. When who's going to operate it, how they're going to do it, and if they're going to be working together with it. So I always had problem with that regional housing, but even when I was working on the HUD, I had problem with it. And that's why I stayed away. And we tried it here on council. We tried it here in the city before, but they wouldn't come together on it. They're not going to come together. The different municipalities wouldn't come together, different housing authorities, because they want to stay on their own separate ground, if you may. So these are the things that we're going to have to look at very seriously. And even at the site we are talking about up on the King Street, on the Upper Peninsula, where are we going to look for a place for our police department, which have sunk ever since I know myself. It was level at one time. If you are, some people remember, it's not there anymore. If you go there now, you see the police department is down here. The top Department of Transportation is up here. They were level at one time when it was first built. So we need to find a place for the police department also to go. And that's why we were looking at that area one time for the police department to move up in that area at one time. So things are changing, but we are always, to me, jumping somewhere else before we solve this problem. And we're looking at so many other problems before we solve the problems that's in front of us. So those are the kind of things that I have a problem with, but living around and being around in this community all night and day. So it's a little different with me looking at things from a different perspective. So I just look at things and listen, and I make my decision later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mitchell. Any other further discussion on this item? Just, again, a lot of wood to chop on this, but didn't want to go too far down the road. Councilman Waring.
Listen, I really commend you and your team for moving away from the parking garage idea, because I just really thought that was blowing out our bonding capacity in the wrong way. So taking that money, whether it was West Ashley, James Island, or another portion of the city, going to a 45-acre tract versus a 16-acre tract, it just didn't work. But thanks for not being locked in on an idea that didn't make sense for the whole city. Thank you.
Well, certainly appreciate it. I think, we can speak offline for those of you, but I think for right now, it sounds like there's a willingness to move forward and get more details. And so that's what I'll intend to do. And then certainly take, as those evolve through committee process, community development, ways and means, real estate, et cetera. So, and certainly being cognizant of time, because we do have some time constraints on making sure that we can deliver product, because we ultimately are going to need to get out of Milford Street. But I have met with those developers, owners of that property, and they're willing to give us a little bit more time. So, we're trying to cover all angles, but appreciate the comments. Again, don't want to take too much more of your time on this issue, but did want to bring it up. So, moving on the agenda.
Move to take item I2 in its entirety.
Well, hold on. We have had a little bit of development there in terms of, we've had, thanks to our wonderful newsletter that goes out to now a lot of people. I think it has more subscribers than even our paper these days, which is impressive. But I'll tell you that the issue right now is we've had a flood of recent applicants, and we've had a few that are on there now that are having a conflict or trying to figure out if they can actually serve. So I'm going to ask that we defer this item until.
Well,
move to defer.
just to be. Everyone else is just to.
Just to be.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
That's
So if we could have a motion.
I would amend my motion that we take item I2 and defer to B, and do it that way.
We have a motion. Probably seconded. Any further discussion on that item? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Now we are on to council communications. Any council communications? Okay, now we're going on to consent agenda items and would like to call on Councilman Waring with regards to Public Works, but I would like to, if I may, say a few words about the Sumar Street project before we get into the discussion and the votes related to Public Works and Ways and Means, if you'll bear with me. So I got one more presentation. I'm getting pretty good at this now. So this is Sumar Street. I'm not going to go and revisit a lot of this stuff, but I do think just in terms of full transparency that we are here as a full committee or council to discuss through, how we got to where we are. You know the site. City's piece is the triangle at the top. And this has been, frankly, something that has been debated in the community ever since the city, in my mind, rightfully bought the property to prevent it from becoming a gas station. What the hell is going on? Sorry. We started with Landmark, and when I looked at it, frankly, this was a huge topic during the campaign, as you all can appreciate. And when I first looked at it, the idea was to put about a $75 million project in the top of that triangle with $44 million plus the land going in from the city. And frankly, the design, I'll give it to the architect, was, in my mind, not a bad design, but that's a lot of stuff to fit into a 3-acre triangle. So it was a real challenge. And when I looked at it, this is at the same time when Publix was looking at moving. Big Lots was there, Dollar Tree. There were some other concepts going on around the larger site to below Sumar Street. And for me, it just made sense to try and redevelop the entire site together. This is something I talked to some of you council members about, and we met with Faison, who was the owner of that property, asked if they were willing to redevelop the entire site. They said they liked the idea of it. They started doing due diligence on it, started looking into how that could happen, and frankly, ran into a lot of challenges because it is a very challenging site. And I'll get to some of those talking points here in a minute. And they came to me and said, look, in full transparency, this is a very heavy lift. This is going to be, $300 million investment. We're a decent sized company, but that's a big move for us. And we don't know that we have the capacity to do it, both staffing and financial capacity right now. So we want to talk to some other folks about that. And so my point back to them was, again, full transparency, was that, look, this is been a very divisive thing in our community. I think there's a real opportunity here, but you need to pay attention to what the community said over, dating back to 2017 with the West Ashley Revitalization Plan. There have been countless meetings. There's been a lot of public commentary about this. And so all of those things need to be taken into consideration when coming up with an idea. And the city is not going to invest or partner with just anyone. They need to have financial wherewithal. They need to have reputation. So kind of set some parameters for Faison when they started looking at different potential partners or people to sell the property to. They went through a process. We met with several of them. It was Faison's decision on who they decided to sign up with. And that is where Eden's, and that is how we got to Eden's being involved in the process. They are under contract to purchase the property. They have not closed on the property, but they have been going through a pretty aggressive due diligence period that we have been working very closely with them on. This is extremely involved. There is a ton of work that's been going on behind the scenes. It is very complicated, and we needed it to get to a place that was worth presenting, that had legs. And if there's any question of whether or not, this was something that's been baked for quite some time, that I can tell you that as of last week, it died and then came back to life, and we can kind of get into the weeds. So it's been walking on some pretty fragile ground. Again, not because of there's been doubts from me for that matter, or staff, or from Eden's. It's just some of the complexities related to this. So what are these? Again, we've talked about this, and what are we looking for? You know, we want a gateway, we want corridors, gathering place, we want an Avondale and a Windermere-like pedestrian bike access. Affordability has been mentioned by Charleston Moves. I can assure you, we have been focused on this wholeheartedly. We have heard the community green space, stormwater improvements. Right now, there is no stormwater retention on that entire 35 acres. All of that water goes into the neighborhoods around it. So that's been a huge issue. Sam Rittenberg, Old Town Road have been in dire need of improvements, both bike ped, beautification, and you need a real catalyst to get DOT, in some cases the county, to kind of get involved on something like this. But basically, we all can say too, I think, a real significant public-private partnership or the city investment in West Ashley is long overdue. Respect your point, Councilman Mitchell, about the peninsula needing funding too. We don't need to be an us versus you. In my opinion, this is something that is part of our city. It's an incredible, important gateway into our city, and has been long neglected. So that's where we got here. Again, complexities on this. I think it is important for you all to understand and know this. Construction costs are at record high. They haven't leveled out. They haven't stabilized. The numbers that just came back from Eden's, which is one of the things that gave them heart palpitations last week, is their anticipated costs were 10% higher than they had underwritten, which 10% on a $300 million project is a lot of money to absorb. Then you have capital markets. The capital markets are horrible right now in terms of borrowing money. Interest rates are 3 times what they were 3 years ago. We just went through the biggest building boom in the past 100 years in our region this past decade, and that is by and large over. So it is a very complex time to get anything off the ground. Publix is another major issue on redeveloping this site. They have currently a lease in place that I believe has, Ms. Copeland, is it 12 years left on it? Something to that effect. And they're paying sub $5 a square foot. And I don't know the exact terms on it, but it is really low. And for this to happen, they have to move. They have to agree to move from their existing location. And they have certain conditions if they want to leave. They want to see residential around it. They want to see built-in client base. So there's some conditions that Publix has had, and they've been a great partner for the city of Charleston. I don't mean to knock Publix, but the reality of it is they are an operating business, and they have a huge stake in whether or not this entire site can be redeveloped. Stormwater requirements, our stormwater ordinance, y'all don't have to tell you all about it. It's complicated. But this is, if there's ever a site that there was a real need for improvements there, and what these guys are talking about doing is putting 9 acres of retention that's a foot deep, that think about that volume of water. Right now, that is all going into the neighborhoods. TIF timing and limits of capacity. This is something that when we dug into the numbers, we needed to see all this information based on a tentative plan and a modeling of what they did. Then we had to get with our financial consultants to see how feasible it was. This is complicated economics to run, to see what the TIF capacity would be. Right now, the TIF is generating little to zero because there's not been much happening in the TIF district. So when you put $300 million of private investment in this, it puts a real shot in the arm. And so you got to figure out what those calculations are, but you can only issue bonds on the balance of the term of the TIF, which is 8 years in, right? So there's limited revenues that can come from it. So this is a real issue, and one of the reasons why this thing needs to be expedited, kicked into high gear, because every month that we go, we're losing bonding capacity, and the value that we can invest back in the public space goes down. Obviously, when you look at the developer looking at this city timeline for approvals, right now we're averaging about 18 to 24 months for approvals. That won't work here. It won't work for our TIF. So we got to figure out a way to expedite that. And that is something that they needed assurances from us on, which is part of your vote tonight. Of course, they've got to deal with multiple tenants and moving things around on a complicated site, not just Publix. You've got the city community space, which is a requirement on our part. Public ownership of the private, and we're not just going to subsidize this. anything that we put in and the monies that we put in have to be part of public realm and owned by the city of Charleston. And then getting back to things that are not just specific to this, we've talked about this in terms of the caliber and quality of what we're looking for here. You need somebody that has the financial capacity, not just says they have the financial capacity. There are a lot of people in the development business say, well, I got money, but then they go and shop it to institutional investors and they try and find the money. Things about Eden's is they're doing this off balance sheets so they can fund it themselves, which is a huge, huge deal for us. They're also, that makes them a long-term investor. So they're really buying into the community if they're putting this much capital in. So they also have a proven track record. And lastly, you know, it's not every day that you'll find a developer like this that's willing to come into all these sort of complexities and look at what has been said on Facebook and Twitter and whatever else over the past 6 years and how divided this has made our community, and we're willing to jump in. So we're at a place right now that I think is, there's been a lot of work to get us here. I think it's just important to be very open and candid with you all about how we got here and why we've evolved to where we have. So we've talked a lot about this. Bottom line is we've kind of gone through everything. For me, the parameters that we put on it, besides being placemaking, and we want something really state of the art. And this was something that in terms of a beginning point of negotiations and discussions for them to design around, the idea was put forward that in the previous iteration, it was $44 million in TIF funding. In that case, it was actually more, it was not just TIF funding, it was parking revenue and it was TIF funding, and the city was front loading it. So the city was at risk before anything was built. And then they were also going to put the land in. The land was on a 90-year lease for $1, but in essence, that's contributing the land. So my point was $44 million is what, you know, has been discussed in the city. So I would start there. You're not going to be able to go higher. Don't assume any additional zoning or entitlements, but you're going to have to fund the money first. We'll reimburse you. That's how normally TIFs work. You reimburse, you take the risk. And so for that $44 million plus the land contribution, instead of 3 acres of redevelopment, we're getting 35 acres. And to me, instead of a $30 to $75 million development, we're getting a $300+ million redevelopment. So to me, I think, again, we've talked a lot about this around this table, but for the public, I think it is very important for everybody to hear a lot of the stuff that has been going on behind the scenes. And I really have to congratulate or compliment our staff, especially Josh and Eric, and our legal, both internal and external. They have been working night and day on this. And so this is, again, the culmination of a lot. Again, we've talked about it. This isn't meant as a threat or anything like that, but I mean, I was a little concerned about whether or not there would be support. We can leave it as is. We can just sell that piece. That's not going to generate much private investment, which won't generate any more money for the TIF. And so we're kind of where we are right now, which I think, in my mind, would be the worst scenario. Here are the economics, guys. And again, this is an effort to just be fully transparent and open. I talked about the $44 million, which you see here, but just for full disclosure, it is also city-owned land, which we bought in 2017 for a little over $3 million. We also have to pay Landmark their fee that we owe to them. So in terms of total investment, it's $47 million. In terms of how it would be funded, 44 of it would be coming from the TIF. That assumes an underwriting of 4.75% bond issuance with a 1.2 debt coverage ratio and assuming a 3% growth. This is coming from our financial consultants. I think it's pretty conservatively underwritten, but we don't know what the bond market's going to be when we issue the bonds. So just again, full disclosure on that. City's already allocated and already paid for the property, obviously, and then city funding for Landmark, that's already been set aside in the 23 budget. So that's the sources for those. So in total investment, it would be $47,712,500. This would leave, based on calculations, as a pay-as-you-go with a slightly lower, if we can get a slightly lower rate, would leave us about $5 million in additional funds to put in the TIF. And then we're also, again, this is open for discussion, but right now are talking about, we have a letter of intent out on the Catholic Diocese property, which is across the street, to buy that, which is $6.5 million. It is currently zoned GB and could have a lot of apartments put onto it by right. So part of this is a defensive move, but also because the city also really needs, besides just the community space and meeting space that we have included in our Sumar plan, we need additional office spaces. And I think this is a good location for that to ultimately evolve as a spot. And so this is the general idea. This is what you're voting on. I wanted to give you all the context, and I will shut up now and open it up for any questions, comments. Councilman Gregory.
And this is the same question I've been asking now for maybe 2 years. I would really like to see the need for additional office space. We talk about it, but I have not seen any data at all in that regard. So at some point, as we move forward, would you please share that data with us so that we can substantiate the need?
Yeah, so we're waiting on that. That y'all issued funding last year for a spatial analysis. So that is ongoing, but by all accounts in the various departments we've been talking to through the budgeting process, everybody's saying they need more space or need updated space. So we don't know what the extent of it is, but there's also a need for a fire station in that area too, and this would be a great location for that as well. So it wouldn't just be city offices. It's a pretty large site. It's about 5 acres, so a lot could potentially go there.
Offices these days.
No, but I mean, we do have facility needs, for
Right,
sure.
especially with Zoom.
Yeah, well, we're still in person part of the time.
So far.
Any other questions? All right. Well, I'm sorry, Councilman Waring.
Yeah, no questions, just an observation. Great explanation. Our last iteration of this was roughly 75 million of about 45 million that the city was putting in. So it was really a $30 million private investment. We were putting in 44 plus the land for 100 years, 99 years for $100. So for that TIF or that development would have never paid for what we're getting here. It would have never paid. A $30 million private investment would not have done that. Obviously, a $300 million private investment does. To make money, you got to spend money. No risk taken, no profit gain, and that's what it is in the area of business. I don't know a business that's profitable that doesn't take risks. So I commend Edens for coming to our community. The people over there, and we all know many of them, are eager for something good to happen, frankly, in the bosom of their community, because that's what this is. This site used to have 3 grocery stores in rock throwing distance to one another. And all 3 of those grocery stores made a living. Now, 2 went out because of corporate problems, not because those locations were unprofitable. The number of roofs in the neighborhoods around there have increased, and certainly they will continue to increase with the live, work, play combination of what's being developed there. So burning the midnight oil has been worth it on this one. I welcome Edens to West Ashley, and will you get 100% an agreement on this? No, but we certainly can get a supermajority in agreement on this, and I look forward to the good things that can happen, not only in this location, but the entirety of the 3-mile district of the TIF district on Sam Rittenberg Boulevard. So thank you for your efforts, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the team. Thank you for our bond attorney, our CFO, our legal staff, and obviously the Edens team. Look forward to it.
Councilman Waring, Councilman Tinkler.
Thank you, Councilman Waring, and thank you, Mayor. I really appreciate your leadership on this and for you as well, Councilman Waring. For y'all here who attended the meeting a couple weeks ago at the Scotch Rite Center, I think it became pretty clear just how the community feels about this project. I think people are tired. I think people are tired of looking at the parking lot. And there was, I think, overwhelming positivity coming from that meeting. I've had a number of people reach out to me and in support of this project who live over in the surrounding neighborhoods. People are not unanimous. This is a massive project. There are a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of work that's left to be done. I commend Edens for coming to the table and staying at the table and for what they're going to put up here. But there's a lot of work left to be done, and you know, I think at the end of the day, with the $300 million investment, it's something that's completely unprecedented in West Ashley. And it's I think something that's going to revolutionize this area. I think what they're proposing with restaurants, outdoor restaurants and retail, this is exactly what people have been talking about when I've been knocking on doors. And I think this is just something that the community wants, and it's going to be a huge revitalization for this area, which is what we've been talking about for so many years now. So thank you. Yeah, if anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer offline, but I know I've probably bugged y'all enough on this project, but it's really something special. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brady.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be brief. I was out walking my dog over the weekend and ran into a few people, and the number one question on everyone's mind that I kept getting asked was, well, how are you voting on Sumar? And, you know, sometimes when people just stop you while you're out in the community, that can be a bad thing. But when I said that, you know, after reviewing everything, going through it, I was leaning towards yes. That to a person, the response that I got was, it's time for the generational investment in West Ashley. We have the population, you know, we want something that's truly remarkable, just like the people that are here in our community. So similarly, I want to thank Edens, the mayor's office, and everybody for doing this, because I know it's a team effort, and I'd like to call a question.
Councilman Gregg.
Thanks. I just have a logistical question. So at what point do we see the zoning that's, I think, a part of Exhibit D or Attachment D to the development agreement? Are we going to see that before second reading?
The zoning itself is not changing.
Okay, so I hate to be the fly in the ointment here, but we bought this property to prevent it from becoming a gas station. It's going to maintain its current zoning as GB. If Edens leaves, we're very happy with Edens and everybody likes them. What if they sell this development? What if somebody else buys it? And then what if they decide to put a gas station here? We have nothing in place to prevent that from happening in the future. So
That has been brought up, some reverter or something that's kind of a catch-all to make sure that what you're talking about, I mean, I'm very comfortable with where Edens is, and that isn't going to happen. But in terms of working through something that would eliminate the kind of concern that you have, is going to be discussed in part at the community development meeting on the 19th. So we're going to be discussing some nuances related to the affordable workforce housing, and then potential modifications to on that front. But I just want to be clear, though, when I say the zoning's changed, I mean, they're not asking for any upzoning of any sort.
Sure. But I guess I would like to see some stronger language in here to prevent this from becoming a gas station in the future if something changes. We don't know.
Yeah, fair enough.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have a motion on, I'm sorry, Councilman Mitchell.
I'll do it after this.
So there's no motion on the floor right now. It's the Committee on Public Works and Utilities report. Councilmember Waring, the Public Works report.
Oh, sorry. I'll stop talking then. How about that?
The mayor, the Public Works and Utility met yesterday actually to consider the question on abandonment of Sumar Street. That actually passed unanimously, and I put forward, I move for the adoption of the report.
We have a motion probably seconded. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Moving on now to Committee on Ways and Means. We have a motion for approval. We have a second. Mitchell second, and any discussion? Councilman Mitchell? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Councilman Gregory.
Just want to make sure that my vote earlier is reflected here as well.
Yes,
which was a
sir.
nay.
And that's a nay on the real estate report. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have motion properly seconded. Any further discussion on this? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
That includes the first reading of the ordinances listed under the Ways and Means report.
Actually, procedure, that's what I was asking. I thought it would come up doing real estate at city council because all three items. Okay, two ways. Okay, all right. All right.
Sounds good.
I just want my colleague to make a motion on
Good
that.
for you.
All right, so that concludes Ways and Means report, committee report. We are now on for bills up for second reading.
Yes, sir.
There are 21 bills up for second readings.
Move to take
Items
1
in-
through 21 together.
Well, yeah, okay, so we have items M12 and M21 as amended.
Before that, may I speak before?
Well, let's get we got a motion for approval. Wait, the motion is to
Second.
take them all together. We have a motion probably seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it.
Now, second reading. What, I thought you were voting to take them
Yeah,
together.
the motion was to take them together and then you do second, then third.
So can we have a motion for approval for second reading?
All right, who's the motion? And
So
the,
moved.
all right.
And can I?
We have a motion. We have a second. But who was the second from
Seekings.
Seekings? Okay, Councilman McBride.
Just really briefly, I won't repeat all my comments from last meeting. You can refer to 20 August City Council YouTube video, timestamp 4730, about my comments on the Jubilee PUD. If you have any questions about that, and I will continue to brief the public on it in town hall meetings. The developers agreed to do the same to explain this project to folks. And that's it. Thanks.
Okay, motion has been properly seconded. Any further discussion on that? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay.
Now for third reading and ratification.
We have motion probably seconded to move to third reading, or go third reading. Any further discussion on that?
Oh, well, there's one question,
Councilman
Mayor.
Boyd?
I would just like to note that after we pass this, it'll be illegal to jump off of bridges in the city of Charleston. So just want everybody to know that never
Who you
thought.
looking at? Who you looking at?
My mom, told me, and everybody's mom tells them, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you? And I never did that, but apparently there are a lot of people on Daniel Island jumping off of bridges. So you're no longer allowed to do that in the city of Charleston.
We have a motion properly, motion is probably seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, now we are done with bills for second and third reading now. We're going to move on to miscellaneous business. We're going to have an executive session. Make a motion. Oh, the executive session is to discuss and receive an update on temporary fire stations located on the peninsula, as well as to receive an update on the tax financing related to Union Pier. We have a motion.
Move to go into executive session.
No,
legal
wait,
advice.
hold it. I still have my hands up. I was waiting.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor forgot about me.
I'm sorry, Councilman Mitchell.
We're talking about having a committee meeting on the 19th. And I want to make sure that we have a quorum before we can go to the meeting for the community development. So I don't know how many people are going to be available because in the beginning, we didn't have nothing on the committee for the community development. That's why I said that I wasn't going to have a meeting because the Bloomberg company came and they wanted to do a meeting and I have it the following Thursday. So who are going to be able to attend the meeting on the 19th?
I'll be there.
That's two.
Community development, who else is on community development?
Yeah, community
This is the
development.
regular meeting.
It's the regular
This is the
scheduled
regular
one.
meeting
On the
because
19th.
it was canceled. I wasn't going to have a meeting. So how many people are going to be able to attend?
So 1, 2, 3, 4, all of us right now.
So if I don't be able to attend, I'll have Councilman Gregory to handle it because I know I had a couple of meetings already because I already canceled that meeting. Oh, well, we'll see what happens, you know.
Okay,
So I just want to make sure they'll be fine.
sorry about that.
I just want to make sure we have a quorum so we can go on with the presentation that's going to happen the 19th.
Councilman Waring?
I do have a question about that meeting on the 19th. Aren't we also supposed to have an issue with the Design Review Board update
Yes.
on the 19th? That's
On the
also
19th.
going to be.
Yeah, there are other items
Good.
on the agenda besides Sumar Street, yes.
I think it's
Thank
the Design Review Board. We're not going to have all these bunch of things on that meeting now. You're telling me, I'm telling you. So I know design, I told him that Robert Summerfield that he can come and do his presentation. I think he have a presentation. He said it wouldn't last that long, about 15 minutes. And because we have meetings, because this is going to be a long meeting also.
I just want you to
So
know,
I just want to let you all know this is going to be a long meeting.
I just want you to know, I got read by the senior member of council and I'm not even on the committee.
All right, we have a motion to go into executive committee. That has
We need
been
a
seconded.
second. We didn't have it. We
We have
had
a
a
second.
moment.
All
We are-
right, so we have a motion that's been properly seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, ayes have it. All right, why don't we go into my office? Back.
And we're ready to go when you are, if.
Will that become our executive session?
Second.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it. We are out of executive session. No action was taken during executive session. And if there are one more signature. If there are no further comments or actions for the good of the body, this meeting is adjourned.
Move for adjournment.